chain, there's Imam Abdul Razak, then there's Ma'mar, and Ibn al-Munqadir, and then Jabir. Radiallahu ta'ala. Up to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in between Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Abdul Razak, there's only 3 people in the chain. If you count up to the Sahabi, there's only 2 people. So possibly the Sahabi, the Tabi'i, the Taba Tabi'i, and then Imam Abdul Razak. This is the link to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he asked a question. He says, Sa'altu Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was the first thing that was created? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam replied, Huwa NOOR of NABI ya Jabir. The noor and light of your Prophet, O Jabir. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains that then this noor, every goodness, kullu khair, every goodness was placed inside this noor. And after it, everything else was created. And then when it was created, it stayed in which the Prophet describes as maqam al-qurb. In qurb ke maqam mein, ye kitna arsa ye noor raha? It remained there for 12,000 years. And it remained there praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divided this noor into 4 sections, 4 portions. And out of them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the arsh and the kursi, and also those angels who are appointed to Qari the arsh and the kursi. And of the 4th part, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala divided that again into 4 parts. From this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the Jannah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the qalam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the law of the tablet and Jannah. And the 4th part again divided into 4 sections. And this 4th part remained, initially the first one, the quarter had remained in maqam al-hub, in a place of love. And this one remained in maqam al-khawf, the station of fear. Again for 12,000 years each. And then this part was divided into 4 parts again. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the moon, the sun, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the stars. And the 4th part again divided into 4 parts, and this one then remaining in Maqam al-Raja, the station of hope, for 12,000 years. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of them 4 parts, created ilm, knowledge, and hikmah, wisdom, wal-isma, and being free of any faults and defects and sins. What tawfiq. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created tawfiq from this. And then that one last part, it remained in maqam al-haya, the station of haya, of modesty, again for 12,000 years. And out of this, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He placed His vision of mercy upon this last part. Is hissa par phir Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ne apni nazre nigahe rahmat dali, aur isko Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned it into a liquid and drop form, drops. And it turned into approximately 124,000 drops, of which, of each drop, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a messenger, or the ruh, the soul of a prophet or a messenger. And then it continues. The hadith continues. It's a long hadith. And the Prophet ﷺ actually mentions this hadith up until where the Prophet ﷺ says, ثُمَّ أَخْرَجَنِي إِلَى الدُّنْيَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then sent me to the world. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me Sayyid al-Mursaleen, Khatim al-Nabiyyin, wa rahmatul lil alameen, wa Qa'id al-Furr al-Muhajjirin, and so on. And this hadith finishes there. And the Prophet ﷺ mentions the beginning of this noor in this hadith. This is why I said to you, Siraj al-Munira, a source of illumination for everything in the entire creation. Even the souls of the prophets and messengers were created from the noor of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very, very briefly, now moving on to the next topic, which is, I mentioned to you that there's 3 strands which you can talk about. The beginning of this noor under Siraj al-Munir. You can talk about the noor of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You can also talk about the physical noor within the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What can we say about this? I mentioned to you 2 ahadith. And really, each and every one of these topics deserves hours. But I mentioned to you 2 ahadith. One, in the childhood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sayyida Halima Sa'diya radiallahu ta'ala, her house during the night, all night long, is lit up. And it's a wonderful glow. Ladies from her tribe, they come to her and they ask her, what have you done? You were very poor. I'm not going to go into the background, you know all of this. You were very poor. And we've had a famine and so on. Now, where have you got the money to buy all of this oil to burn these lamps all night long? Says, my sisters, I have no lamp. The only lamp I have is Siraj al-Munir. The only lamp I have is this Siraj al-Munir, which lights up the surroundings of my house all night long. The Sahaba say when the Prophet ﷺ used to speak, in between, from the gap in between his teeth, rays of noor and light come out. And one particular hadith which Allama Nabhani mentions in Hujjatullahi al-Alameen, Sayyida Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she narrates, one day I was sat at night sewing something and I dropped the needle. The lamp had gone out. I'm searching for this needle. Can't find it. All of a sudden Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam walks in. As he walks into the room, the whole room is lit up. So much so that I'm able to find this needle on the floor in the noor and the light emitted from the face of Rasulullah. That's very briefly about the physical manifestation of this noor. The last strand I said was how the Prophet ﷺ eradicated the darkness of ignorance from this world by spreading the light and the noor of Hidayah. And for this, it deserves hours, but I only have 2 minutes. So just 2 things. One, rights of women. Those girls who were being buried alive when the Prophet ﷺ. It was the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ that stopped this custom and made those parents actually have remorse at having done this. Teachings of Rasulullah ﷺ. Women, read Surah Baqarah. Read the verses of the Quran regarding talaq. And I can see, alhamdulillah, some of our having key students here. Something is done. Those verses of talaq, the ulama, what did they mention about this? Women were treated entirely as an object, as a belonging, as a commodity. They were tortured. The divorce system then was, give them a divorce, a month later retract it. A month later give them another divorce and retract it. Do this hundreds of times, keep them imprisoned until they die. And then inherit whatever they wanted to inherit. Who stopped this? At-talaqu marratan. The retractable divorce is only twice. And for God's sake, I have to say this now. You youngsters out there, or those of you who understand English, this should be the very, very last step. Don't ever take this step when you're angry. It should always be done with a cool mind. And what are you trying to achieve by giving all 3 divorces at once? You give all 3 divorces at once, you come to us, we say no, 3. That's it, it's done. And then you go off to others and you ruin your aqidah and your amal. Have some fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Learn the laws of divorce regardless of the Sharia. And if necessary, if it has to be done, an absolutely last resort, then do it according to the teachings of the Sunnah. And save yourself this agony. Because if you've done it properly, it will be a retractable divorce within the iddah. After the iddah, you will still be able to do the nikah again if you're both willing. If you do it properly, the way is out of it. I've had people come to me and say to me, oh, well, why so strict and so on, and we're doing tawbah and this. Tawbah is for a gунah. This is a legal matter. There is no concept of tawbah here. This is a legal ruling. You can't go and steal something or any other act of crime and then go into the police station and say, I've done tawbah. You're still going to be tried and you will still face the consequences of the law. You have invoked the Islamic Sharia and it has consequences. The problem is you don't learn about it. And these ulama will testify to this. 90% of masail that come to us nowadays are about talaq, about divorce. Because people don't know. Somehow they've got it into their mind that you have to give 3 divorces for it to happen. Which is completely wrong, and it's in sheer ignorance. So learn about this. If you learn about it, you'll save yourself a lot of agony. And you'll always leave yourself a room for reconciliation. The worst result, I've told you. Because 3 is 3. 3 is not 1. 3 has never been 1. We don't believe in Trinity. 3 is not 1. 3 is 3. Anyway, coming back to the point, the Quran gave women these rights. It's liberated them from this oppression. Women were treated as objects. They were inherited. What more of a disgrace can there be? But when someone dies, just like their land and property is divided amongst their kin, women were inherited when their husbands died. Who put a stop to this? The teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Quran. The Quran clearly states, you cannot inherit women. Cannot make them your inheritors. They would inherit them, and several then scenarios, either keep them in prison, and they would have to buy their freedom by paying their share of their husband's inheritance. Or they would marry them unwillingly and not pay them their mahar. And when they wanted to be divorced, they would ask for their inheritance. Or they would just simply keep them in prison and let them die and then claim their inheritance. What put a stop to this cruelty? Islam did, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. Who delivered the rights of animals? Who delivered the rights of humans, of women, of men, of children, of parents? Who did this? Who taught you that there's a specific manner that you need to adopt throughout your life? From when a child is born, there are things that are done, customs and traditions from when a child is born. Give him a good name, shave his head, do a aqiqah. All of these bring him up with love and affection. Etiquettes and manners for everything, right down to the fact that we've even been taught how to relieve ourselves. Which religion gives you, which spiritual book gives you such complete guidance? Which teaching gives you such complete guidance? The Prophet ﷺ came to this world, and this world was immediately changed. Changed for the better, and the darkness immediately subsided. And the world as we know it today owes a debt of